This is the Apache Death Cave, and it is located 30 minutes east of Flagstaff, Arizona. And before I climb down there and start exploring it on foot, it is extremely imperative that I tell you its backstory and why it's such a popular place that draws in thousands of visitors from all over the place, including paranormal investigators. The popular story that most people have heard probably goes like this. In the 1870s, the Apache carried out many raids on the Navajo villages, killing everyone and taking what they could before disappearing into the desert. Now, in 1878, a group of ruthless Apaches raided yet another Navajo encampment. They proceeded to loot and kill everyone, men, women, and children. But toward the end of their raid, they had discovered that 3 young Navajo girls still remained, and sadly, they were taken by the Apache. Now, after the raid, it was only a matter of time before word of this gruesome attack made its way back to the leaders of the Navajo. They eventually dispersed a team of 24 men to track down this lawless group of Apache raiders, hopefully retrieve the 3 young Navajo girls, and bring the Apache to justice. Time after time, the Navajo set out into the desert in hopes to find the Apache's hideout, but each time they were unsuccessful. As the search continued on, the Navajo got word that another one of their nearby villages was attacked. Now, this led them to believe that number 1, they couldn't have gone too far, and number 2, they're probably hiding out nearby. Another team was soon sent out to track down the Apache, and while searching the area known as Canyon Diablo, the 2 Navajo trackers felt a breeze of hot air coming up from the ground beneath them. They soon realized that this hot air was coming from a campfire beneath the surface and escaping through the cracks. At this point, it was only a matter of time before the army of enraged Navajo had returned, and when they did, they ended up killing 2 Apache watchmen and demanded that the 3 young girls be released promptly. But after no response, the Navajo quickly gathered up sagebrush, wood, and anything else that they could find to set fire at the mouth of the cave. With no sign of surrender or response from the Apache, thick smoke quickly crawled up the cave walls, filling every crevice in sight. Now, in an attempt to survive, the Apache slit the throats of their horses and used the blood to extinguish the flames and their lifeless bodies to block the entrance to the cave. One of the Apaches did escape and begged for mercy, but when the Navajo had asked about the 3 young girls, he gave a response that lacked confidence. This confirmed what the Navajo had already thought. They had been killed. Now, the Navajo continued to add more sagebrush and wood to the fire and continued to fire rounds down into the caves. The Apache responded by singing death songs, knowing that they were well about to meet their maker. After the flames had died out and the smoke had settled, the Navajo made an attempt to retrieve any useful valuables that they could from the dead Apache. The story goes on to say that ever since that fateful day in 1878, no Apache has ever occupied the caves again. Local tribesmen warned individuals passing through the area that it is cursed and will bring upon bad luck to any pioneer that looks to settle here. Nowadays, it's an abandoned tourist attraction with many ruins left behind from the early 1900s. Obviously, over the years, people have attempted to settle here, and well, just by looking at it, I think we can all see how that went. But some of the earliest settlers that lived here reported multiple accounts of hearing distant cries, faint groaning, screaming, and footsteps. But given that information, you can expect me to be on my toes. My eyes and my ears are going to be peeled as we make our way through the Apache Death Caves. Now, with all that being said, and what you know now, let's go check out the caves. And I do want to say real quick, there is one more really important detail that I need to share with you guys about these caves, but I'm going to wait until after we're done exploring them to share that. So let's go. If my memory serves me correct, the Apache Death Caves are right up here. Unfortunately, I have to film from over here because there's some graffiti over there with some not nice words on it, and I don't want to get that on film, but we are going to end up walking down there. Hopefully that beam is strong enough to support me, otherwise one fall down there could be pretty deadly.
I do have my other flashlight just in case. Here's our first look at the entrance to the cave here. Looks like they put some sheet metal here to kind of help protect so this rock doesn't, or this little frame right here, so that way the rock doesn't fall down on you. Good looking out. We're a few feet in the caves here. There's a little tunnel back there, but it doesn't look like it goes too far. This is some straight up Indiana Jones stuff. Well, all of a sudden my gimbal decided that it was not going to work, so I'm going to do my best to freehand this without giving you guys jittery Blair Witch footage here. Here's another little chamber here in the caves. I'm definitely not the biggest guy in the world, and I'm not the smallest, but there is no way in HE double hockey sticks I am going to go crawling through there. That's kind of cool. You can see the light coming down from the top there. Here's another little chamber. I would love to go back there because it looks like it's big enough, but the only problem is that is right above you. It almost looks like at any point it could come crumbling down, and that would be the end of you. It's almost like a booby trap straight out of the Goonies. Definitely one of the more creepier explorations that I've ever done. See that black hole? That is exactly where we are going. Here's another little room. It almost looks like it could have been a fire pit. I straight up feel like I'm in the movie The Goonies right now, and we're going after One-Eyed Willie's treasure. Take a look at this. Some statues right here. Some angels praying, it looks like. There's always that part of the human instinct that always tells you to turn back right now, don't go any further, and it's meant to keep you out of danger. In times like this, you definitely have to find a way to override it.
At this point, you may be asking yourself, but Jesse, aren't you scared about going down there all by yourself? What if there's a serial killer down there? Doubtful, but what if I run into a rattlesnake, mountain lion, or what if the spirits from those that perish down there don't like me poking around with a camera? Well, truth be told, any of those things could happen, but I was more so worried about a cave-in. You see, they were doing some construction not too far from here, and I kept thinking in the back of my head that the slightest little tremor could cause a cave-in. Second to that, I was worried about stepping on a rattlesnake, or hearing one rattle as I rounded a corner. I may appear calm in a lot of these shots, but I was extremely apprehensive.
This is like some straight up Blair Witch Project stuff here. Look how big this room is. Be creepy. A little bit of graffiti down here. It's definitely very moist. We got some rebar right here. I don't think that actually served a purpose for anything. Wonder why it's down here. This just keeps going and going. Without the flashlight, it's just pure darkness down here. Look how big this is, though. I mean, yeah, you could definitely fit a lot of people down here, but even right now, I'm starting to have to crouch down. I'm like 5'10", and I'm almost standing up right here. I don't know how far we're gonna be able to squeeze back through here. Everywhere I look on these walls, it looks like a bunch of skulls. Ugh. This is an extremely tight space right now. Like there's maybe 3 to 4 inches of clearance between my ears here and the rock walls. This is a very, very tight squeeze. If you have claustrophobia, I would not recommend watching this video. It's probably not for you. Am I creeped out? Especially after knowing what happened down here a little bit, but it's the claustrophobia and rocks amongst anything else that's getting to me. This is extremely narrow, but I think we've gone as far as we can. Take a look. I am not fitting back there, so I'm not even gonna try. And I don't think we can fit back there. This is nuts. Sometimes I wonder why I do the things I do. All right, this is a really narrow part. Are there people over here? This is a pretty popular tourist attraction. There is a big construction site not that far from here. This sweatshirt is gonna be tore up when I get out of here. I'm not kidding. This is one of my favorite sweatshirts too. I got it in Alaska. Well, the good news is no one stole my drone bag.
This was a pretty exhilarating experience, and while I wouldn't recommend coming down here all by yourself, if you do find yourself out here on the old Route 66, it's definitely one of those classic roadside attractions worth checking out. I was lucky enough to have the cave all to myself that day, and just about any time you're out here, you're bound to see people hiking through the canyon, coming down into the caves, and checking out the nearby ruins.
Well, I gotta say, this has been a pretty exhilarating experience. And for all of you guys watching at home, first of all, happy Halloween. And let me know if you would ever come wandering through the Apache Death Caves all on your own. Let me know down in the comments. And for those of you that are saying, no way, Jose, no way in hell, well, after I tell you about this next story, you might change your mind. But first, let's get out of here so I can live to tell the tale. Now, it's time to break your hearts. A few seconds ago, when I asked you guys if you would come down to the Apache Death Caves and go in there by yourselves, I figured most of you would say, hell no, like no way. And I don't blame you, but here's another addition to the story that you probably weren't expecting. And after I tell you this, well, you probably still won't go down there by yourself, but this might make you feel a little bit better about it.
What if I were to tell you that these were just ordinary caves and that no Apaches died down here and that the entire thing was made up by the owner in an attempt to lure tourists down here and charge them a nickel to explore the caves? A nickel was a lot of money back in the early 1900s. You see, there is actually no historical backing of the story, and for the longest time, like many others, I believed it was real. But that begs the question, Where does this story come from, and is there any truth to it? I was once told by a group of tourists a while back that back in the early 1900s, when the old zoo was here along with the gas station and a few other attractions, that the owner would charge people to go down there, and if they could find any bones or skulls remaining of the Apache, they could keep them. Pretty creepy, right? That's like something straight out of an Ed Gein movie. Yeesh. But what about those ruins down there? Sure enough, those stacked rocks were built by the Apache, right? Well, not so fast. The caves back then, in the 1920s, were owned by Harry Indian Miller, a gentleman that claimed he was either full-blooded or half-blooded Apache, depending on which source you read, and old postcards from the late 1920s show it advertised as the Apache Caves, or Mystery Caves, and that he also outfitted the caves with the stacked rocks to entertain visitors and give the impression that it was once occupied by the Apache, even though no evidence supports the claim that it was living quarters by the Apache. Now, to be super crystal clear, there was no mention of the words Apache Death Caves, and there were no accounts of the gruesome acts that happened here until 1968. But Jesse, why was 1968 so significant? Well, first of all, that's when Richard Nixon won the White House, but that's irrelevant. In 1968, the book titled Two Guns came out, and it was written by the quote-unquote expert in Western history, Mr. Gladwell Grady Richardson, a prolific writer with over 300 novels under his belt, and his book at that time had the only information on the event of the Apache Death Caves that you seemingly couldn't get anywhere else. On top of that, in 1950, Gladwell Richardson's father bought the town of Two Guns. His mother and father ran this place for many years, and in fact, this is where Gladwell Richardson started writing his book that would eventually be called Two Guns, which would later be published in 1968. Final question for you guys. Do you really think that these caves are the final resting place of the souls of the Apache that perished here in the late 1870s? Or is this just some elaborate scheme cooked up by a writer to get tourists to stop in and pay a few bucks to see some attractions on the side of the famous Route 66? Let me know down in the comments section. And if you do want to see more desert exploration videos just like this one, be sure to click that playlist in the upper left-hand corner so you can continue watching.